Maybe you do have to people please a little bit. Maybe you do have to fall into some of the manipulation that is people pleasing and being too nice. Hello, welcome back to my podcast. My name is Ariel, and this is Feeling My Feelings, where I finally feel my feelings after years of dissociating from them. After years of honestly being too nice or quiet about them. After years of eventually outbursting and getting angry, but holding my tongue first. So, y'all, today we're talking about honestly a really controversial topic, and that is, are you being too nice? When can you be kind versus nice? When are you allowed to be angry? And when is it just someone else's fault because they're just an asshole? Well, all of that will be discussed and more today. Also, I decorated for Christmas. I've had this for years. And then this is my little mermaid themed Christmas tree. Little starfish. Little scale looking pink thing. But we're still keeping old Skelly up here, because I do not forget about Halloween too fast. So she's just gonna hang out. Anyway, let's talk about nice. I hate that I have to admit that I am a people pleaser and that I've been too nice as opposed to kind. I hate it because honestly, it was a survival mechanism, but one that I stuck to for way too long. I think, and I'm sure that you probably relate to this as well, I think I'm someone who holds a lot of strong moral character and integrity. I know pretty strongly right and wrong, and that's the reason why I would not resort to hurting other people, controlling them, manipulating them in a more obvious way. But if I'm stuck in a traumatic situation, and if I had to choose between that and being the person who has to take one for the team, hold their tongue, and sacrifice my own needs, I will. I just want to point out that that makes you a strong person. That doesn't make you weak. That means that you are humble. That means that you care about the whole, but that also means that you do hurt yourself. And more as I've gotten older, I have understood the narky people. I get y'all. Like, if you do feel like you know better, and if everyone is playing this narcissist versus like fake people pleaser like game, I feel like, why don't I just stand up, do exactly what I want, and if people believe me, they can follow me. Why not? But we want to do that in the healthier way and the more balanced way. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is, I totally get you. You resent the fact that you have become a people pleaser and you've become a nice person because you had to do what you had to do in order to survive. But as you know, we learn on this podcast, we don't have to stay in survival mode forever. And especially having the self-awareness of what you're doing, like that will help you grow out of it so that you can feel like you don't have to live in survival, you don't have to mask yourself so much anymore. This is what I'm trying to learn. But yeah, let's stop having to hurt ourselves. let's not people please anymore. I will say, okay, let's recognize when we are people pleasing, when we're being too nice, and how much we actually need to be doing that. Here's the thing. You get burned once in anything, in any traumatic experience, and you will likely learn that survival response and not change it until something makes you change it. So what I'm saying is, if you learn to be a people pleaser in your first job, I did a couple jobs ago, learn how to be a people pleaser because I had no choice, that will carry over as a knee-jerk response because your body is used to having to mask itself. Your body is now used to this defense mechanism. For me, I had the most toxic experience a couple of years ago with a boss that would come into each of our offices at this workplace and just like cry and complain out of nowhere. Sometimes it would be directed to people. Sometimes it would just be like, I hate everything white. And she would just kind of emotionally dump. And she would just kind of choose someone's office to do that in that day. So the workplace was already on edge. She was the CEO of the company. And here and there, a couple times a month, we would get emails at like 2 a.m. that were sent to random people. I never got one, but I was on a group one for like my whole department. But she would sometimes target specific people, and there would be paragraphs of just like her complaining about them. And so, safe to say, I was in a really toxic situation that caused me to be in survival mode and only gave me these choices. It was either I would always stand up for myself and be caught in arguments and just be met with a lot of abrasiveness constantly. Or option 2, I would have to hold my tongue, pretend everything was fine, and just observe someone being abrasive to other people. Or, I could just leave. And so eventually I chose option number 3, but most of the time I stayed in option number 2, but I definitely had moments where I outbursted and I got angry. But, all this to say, you end up having to people please because you have no other choice. But after I left that place, I found myself still putting on this people-pleasy, fake, sort of conditioned fear response personality at my next workplaces without realizing that I didn't necessarily need to. I mean, there's some degree of this in every workplace and in every sort of neutral community zone, but I think I was so traumatized from that situation that I treated the rest of my workplaces like I had to be on guard, I had to be quiet, I didn't want to say anything, and most of all, I didn't want to show my real personality or my opinions. I learned to quiet my voice way too much. And what was worse was I even learned to detach. I dissociated from reality. I say that a lot on this channel, but when you are at a point where you need to hold back from your emotions and you don't want to be present from them, your body also detaches from its own feelings. So not only was I people-pleasing and ignoring my feelings when it came up with other people, it became easier to do that all the time with just myself. So you might be finding that your true personality, and I don't think anyone's is, your true personality is not someone that is walked all over. I don't think that anyone's really is. Just like I don't think anyone's true personality is manipulative and narcissistic. That's all learned. You may run more quiet, more introverted, more likely to put energy back into yourself and to turn inward. But nowhere, I think, in anyone's personality is it coded that they are just a scared person who never sticks up for themselves. I think that that's just something that ends up happening. But anyway, I also feel like, in general, if you have trouble speaking up, if you have trouble feeling like it's possible to speak up, let's look at that closer. So it's really important to look at how limited our beliefs are around people. Honestly, every month around my period, I go through this sort of same hormonal depression cycle where I'm like, wait a minute, I hate people again. And it makes me bring up all these limiting beliefs where I feel like, no, you have to be guarded around everyone, or everyone's going to take advantage of you, or blah, 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 blah. And I only really see the horrible people, or the ones that are going to hurt me. Here's the thing. I literally this morning saw this little podcast clip of Reese Witherspoon talking about people in your life. And she says that there's 3 types of people in your life. The first is basically the people who do have your back, the people who do care about you. And that's maybe 1/3 of the people that you will run into. The second are neutral people. They're people who wouldn't stick up for you, but they wouldn't hate you. They kind of steer clear of you. You know, they're neutral. They don't really care. In an emergency situation, maybe they'll do what's good for everyone. Maybe they'll just run away and take care of themselves. You don't know. And then the last third of people are the ones who do have a problem with you. And in whatever way, whether it is outright or whether it is just you guys butt heads when you do interact, whatever it is, those are not the people who are on your team necessarily. Those are the ones that you always find some sort of issue with on some level. And so when we're thinking of people that way, I think it's important to realize that there are situations where you do have to be neutral. You do have to sort of agree to disagree. You do have to choose your battles, but you can't end up honestly deciding that all people need you to be fake. Not all people need you to be too nice. Not all people need to be constantly screamed at or yelled at. This is what's hard, especially again if you're like me and you ended up in a survival sort of mode. You can't basically blanket everybody and pretend like you have to be the same sort of fake around everyone. But that ends up being easier if you are overwhelmed and feeling still in this state of trauma response. So I know how that feels. I've been stuck in that on and off for a while, and it was just easier to think, well, everyone's gonna hate me. I just have to put on my fake face. We do that for customer service because whatever's going on, we gotta fix the sale on someone's t-shirt and we can't get personal about it. However, if you're talking about something that you need to fight for, let yourself fight for it. But yeah, basically what I'm trying to say is we have to stop thinking that we have to be fake all the time. We can't think that that is the only way to survive around people. We have to allow ourselves to believe that most of the time we can generally be ourselves. And most of the time you basically should. And if you do fall into people pleasing, we have to learn how to instead assert ourselves around people we don't feel safe to be ourselves with. Here is a hard truth that I have recently learned from the after events of the recent election, and that is no matter how nice you are, no matter how much of a good person you are, you can't expect other people to show up the same way. So if you are being really nice, if you are being a people pleaser, obviously there's going to be people who will take advantage of that because they do not have the same integrity or morals as you. They don't treat people the same necessarily as you. And again, it's unfortunate and it takes work, but it's going to save you in the end to be able to be discerning between different types of people. And sure, maybe you do have to people please a little bit. Maybe you do have to fall into some of the manipulation that is people pleasing and being too nice. I know that I had to recently. I recently worked on short film, and even though I love the experience, I realized that some of the people in charge would not be bearable unless I was more agreeable. Now, the people in charge, I mean, one of them did call me out on it because she would just be like, she'd be like, are you kind of a people pleaser? And I'd honestly be like, I mean, it depends. Like, I do what's right for the situation. And that is an honest response. I feel like if I did constantly say what was on my mind, I would just always upset this person. So I chose to have to people please. But now that I've gone through that, now that I've been pretty pissed off from another experience from that, I no longer want to be that type of person. I would ideally up front be the type of person that people know demands respect. I would ideally be a person who does assert herself. Here's the thing. People pleasing, being too nice, kind of is manipulation. And it's manipulation because, well, you're putting on something that doesn't feel genuine because you have something to gain. And so, I mean, I'll say that it's the lesser of the two evils, but you're still hurting yourself in the end. And you're still sort of manipulating other people. I also just think it's funny because A lot of the more abrasive, controlling, outright manipulative people, they will hate when they see a people-pleasing person. I recently ran into this. I mean, and the thing is they also want one. Isn't that funny? A lot of those types of controlling people will want someone who's super agreeable, that'll do whatever they want, but they'll also turn around and be really pissed off at that same person for not being more decisive or for being confused. You can't win. I mean, if you're with somebody who is controlling, who is hard to work with, they're not going to see or be more self-aware of that sort of thing. So just note that you are going to have to play some sort of game with someone who is already manipulative. It's going to be too hard to trust someone like that. So that is why you are ending up becoming people-pleasing, becoming manipulative in your nice person way. And do that if you have to. But eventually we do not have spaces where we're stuck like that forever. So, like you probably heard before, obviously, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to assert yourself. I know that doesn't seem safe yet. I know for me, like, it is still somewhat unfamiliar because my body is still in this sort of depressive, survival, scared mode. So, let's create safety for ourselves. Let's create spaces where we can express our own feelings. I think a lot of people-pleasing, nice people get confused about what they actually feel. And as much as I feel like I'm really introspective and I feel like I do listen to myself a lot, I still deny myself of my feelings too much to the point where I end up confusing myself. I mean, if you have lived amongst people that have made you censor yourself for so long, you start to forget what you're allowed to feel and what you aren't. I mean, it's like if you've been gaslit for so long, like it's different when you haven't been around healthier environments. I know for me, I'm actively trying to find different groups of people, different places, even support groups, honestly, different therapists, because not all therapists work out for each person, but I'm actively trying to find people who encourage me to be expressive. I am actively trying to find people who want to give me undivided attention and listen. I think it's important to spot the red flags for who you're going to end up people-pleasing and being too nice around. So those are the people who hijack conversations, who talk over you, who seem to not really be listening. Those are the people, who are going to act fake and pretend like they're listening. I think we can't get stuck like being on this default mode forever. And also, just in general, we can't be complacent and just accept that, like, oh, that's just how the world is. The world's just not going to care about you. The world's just not authentic or real. Like, we always see it on social media. We probably talk about it all the time about how, like, people aren't genuine. People aren't fake. Or people aren't real. They're just fake. This is true, but why don't we go and be the genuine, real people out in the world? And also, let me just say, I think a lot of this comes out of being empathic and kind people. So the difference, which I think a lot of people talk about, but like the difference between being nice versus kind and empathetic in a healthy way is that when you are kind and when you're having empathy, like for the good of the person, then you're doing things for the good of the situation and what they need, not just to avoid conflict, not just to get what you need or what you want, not just to not get in trouble. To be kind is doing something that is right. And so if we can transform our niceness into kindness, I think it'll be better and it'll still fall in line with what we value, which is still not hurting people. And it'll still fall in line with having integrity. I think also when you're running into people who are being really abrasive or just kind of mean, or they don't really know what they're saying, it is obviously, I think we need to start asserting ourselves. We need to start sticking up for ourselves. we have to tell people how to treat us. So that means sometimes if you want to do this slowly, you can ask questions. Like if someone is offending you, you could be like, "Oh, do you really think so?" Like like we also have to learn not to take things so personally, because then we don't have to feel like anything someone's saying to us is affecting us to the point where we have to act fake. We ideally will get to a point where we automatically speak up for ourselves without having to think of it, without having to feel like it takes too much effort, without feeling scared to. You're allowed to get there. It's actually your right to get there. There will be those people, that third of the world that are still assholes, that may still elect asshole presidents. There is gonna be that third of the world that won't have your back. I don't want to manifest that, but right now, if that's the reality, just realize that we have to learn to stand up for ourselves instead of feeling like it's safer to succumb to those people. It's a process, y'all, but we can get through. Okay, well, until next time, say how you feel. Have spaces where you can express yourself, journal, talk to yourself, feel into your body and your feelings, and try to understand what you're really feeling. Feel your feelings, y'all. Okay, well, until next time, peace and love. Bye-bye.